But
Nice.
now you're just fucking, dude. That was like the fastest claps in the West, right there, bro. That was so quick.
That's
it was
what happens,
impossible.
baby.
You can't even see it.
No?
Yeah, you're like, didn't even look like I was moving. Did
Does
it?
he
That
have
was
hands?
So quick.
I don't know.
I'm not sure at this point.
I don't know. What if I
gotta be
didn't?
real.
What if I only had one hand this entire time?
That's a good point.
It's a good point. I'd be, man, wouldn't that be, dude, so instantly I thought of the fact that I can, like, I obviously can play a lot of games pretty well. And thinking if I only had one hand and just being like, oh yeah, I could still play all these games with one hand. Like I've seen, there's been a speedrunner who he had, I forget what it was, but it was some disability where he could only use like one of his hands. But he played a platformer, like a precision platformer with just one hand the entire time, obviously because he has no other way, but he's speedrunning and playing with one hand. And I was like, fuck, I probably can't even beat that game. Like this guy's just shitting all over me. Like,
yeah, I mean, it's always been the standards that no matter what, however good you are at something, there is someone that's better than you.
For sure.
Which sounds so weird because it's like there has to be one person that is the best in the world, and it's like, you're better just hasn't been discovered yet. He's still fiddling with putting together his fucking bongo controllers so he can dunk on your record, bro. Like,
it's true.
It's so depressing. Feeling like you're good at something and then just somebody coming out of the woodwork and just being like inconceivably fantastic.
Yeah.
They're just like, yeah, not only am I better than you, but I'll also give myself this handicap where I play with this random ass controller.
It's
or
like
I made a controller out of bananas. And you're like,
yes, it's like the Dark Souls players who play with a dance pad, like a DDR pad. And you're
Yeah.
like, what are you doing? Why
can
is
they
that a
fuck
thing?
themselves, dude? Or the guy, did you ever see the streamer who went for the world record in Dark Souls where he beat all 3 games without ever getting hit? Not a single time. Yeah, and then it was so funny because, like, I think the first time he tried to run it, he got all the way to the last boss in Dark Souls 3, and right before he got into the boss, he got hit in the back with an arrow and had to start all the way over again.
God, that is rough.
Not even just that game. He had to start all the way over from the first Dark Souls game. It's so depressing, dude. Oh.
That's one of those moments where like I would just eat, no matter how good I am, I'd just be like, well, that's it. We're not doing this. Like,
yeah, that was a waste of my life. Whatever.
Yeah, like I'm not getting that back. We're done with this.
No, the fact that that person persevered and just redid it was like, I'll just go back through. I mean, just whatever. It doesn't matter. That's fucking insane.
So
like
crazy.
People are so cool. I revere so many people, bro. But here's the thing. I got to ask you. This is a completely side topic, but I've been curious about this ever since I had it happen. So I got my second COVID vaccine this week. I wanted to ask you, because everyone's got different things.
Yeah, for sure.
Did you have any significant side effects from your COVID vaccine?
Yeah, so for the first one, I didn't, other than just my arm was sore, whatever. And then for my second,
which is so weird because it feels like your arm's going to fall off.
There's like metal in your veins. It is.
Yeah, well, they putting that Wi-Fi chip in you, bro.
It's true. Yeah, it's gotta attach to all your inners,
all your nerve endings.
Yeah. But my second, I had the same thing with my arm, but I got the worst migraine I've ever had in my entire life. Like my head was fucking pounding, and I just felt weak as shit. But like after I don't know, like 12 hours or so of just feeling like, then it was gone, and I was like, okay, back to normal. And that was it.
Oh, really? Yeah, my wife totally duped me because I was like, everyone had told me right when you get the COVID vaccine, like you're just going to feel like shit or whatever. Like you get your second dose, you're just going to feel like shit for that day. So it's like, sweet. I get it on a Wednesday. I have Wednesdays off for right now. I don't start school until this upcoming week. It's going to be awesome. Like it's not going to be a big deal. I get my COVID vaccine. I go home and my wife is sitting there. Like I tell her I got my vaccine and she was like, oh, what time? And I was like, oh, like probably at noon or whatever, which was super annoying, by the way, because like a random side tangent. I'm like sitting there. I'm waiting in line. I was like off to the side because this lady had like 85 kids with her. There's a lot of kids. And I was like just off to the side because I wanted to give them their room. And where they were given the COVID vaccines at this or getting your paperwork ready and everything at this Albertsons, it was the smallest aisle. So I was like, I'll just stand to the side or whatever. This lady stands right next to me. So she's like, oh, okay, you get it. You're behind me in line. And then like the second I pulled out my phone to look at it, she switched sides. And I was like, bitch, are you trying to cut in line? And to be honest, it didn't even bother me that much. I just let it go. I was like, whatever, I don't care. And she ended up getting like, she got her third dose. She was like one of the first people to ever get their third dose, which was interesting. But she was like, yeah, I want both my flu shot and my third dose. And I was like, whoa, you're going on one, bro. You're going to have that, like,
not taking any chances.
Yeah, you're going to have that extra durability. You're going to be like Supergirl, bro. It's going to be sweet. Okay.
Maybe.
But I get my dose. I come home talking to my wife. I had gone to get Mongolian with my parents. Good shit. And, it only hurts later. And I talked to my wife. She's like, when'd you get it? I was like, oh, probably around noon. She's like, so you're probably not going to know if you're going to have any symptoms until like midnight tonight, like right before you go to bed. Because apparently it kicks in 12 hours later. And I was like, people been bitching about this fucking thing for like a year. And no one happened to mention that there's this 12-hour period that you feel fine. Because I was like, God, these fucking, like, look at this fucking, I'm a strong, I'm a thick boy. Ain't no way, dude. Ain't no way that they are going to that it's gonna affect me at all. And then I wake up the next morning and felt like absolute dick. I was like, really? Great. I had like a headache, and here's the thing. I can deal with headaches. I can deal with like coughing, sneezing, whatever, easily manageable. But there is one thing that I truly despise about illnesses. You know what? The like dying part, I would choose that over this. Let's be real. Is the chills. I fucking hate it. Okay, have you ever gotten the chills before? Where your whole body, no matter how hot you are, you're cold?
Yeah.
That pisses me off. I hate it so much. Because it also makes my bones feel weak. And I don't like it. Yeah, like, I went to work, and I was just sitting there at work. I picked up a box, and I was like, my arms are going to break. I hate this.
Oh, my goodness. I would much rather take chills over nauseousness every day, though. Like,
I guess that
is the one thing I
haven't been
cannot.
nauseous in like a really long time.
Yeah,
so I guess
I have a serious. So when I go to the gym, it's very rare. I think it's being dehydrated, but sometimes I work out too hard. And what happens is, and I know when it's coming, I have this thing where I'll work out and I'll start to feel myself kind of like this weird wave of like, I know I'm about to be sick, and I'm like, oh fuck, I gotta go to the bathroom. And so what happens is my body like effectively shuts down. And it's like, we gotta shit, we gotta vomit, we gotta just drench ourselves in sweat. And I have to like literally go into a bathroom and then just like lay down on the ground, like flat, because otherwise the world is coming to an end. And I just feel so sick to my stomach. It is the worst fucking feeling in the world. And I cannot stand it. I
don't know why, just the idea of you go into like a family bathroom and just take a nap on this like public bathroom floor.
It's mostly because I'm going to have to either shit or vomit, because I try to only do one of the two, but my body wants to do both. But then I have to be like, okay, I have to just like chill here, because if I start like standing up, I'll be like woozy and like I could probably pass out. So I have to just be like, all right, I live here now.
You're like, whatever, this is my domain. Did you ever, when you were a kid, like when you got nauseous or whatever, you just brought your pillow and blanket into the bathroom and slept there? Like, did you ever do that?
You live by the toilet.
Yeah, thinking about that now, I'm like, I would never do that.
It's so gross.
That's disgusting.
It's so gross.
Like, it's so, especially because like when you go to clean a toilet, you realize how fucking gross your entire bathroom is. So it's just like, I had my face on this floor, basically. Like, it's so disgusting. I hate it. I hate it so much. Just thinking back. That sucks. But yeah, I hate the chills. I ended up that night, I went to go to bed and I put on my wife's like Snuggie hoodie. It was like the warmest hoodie ever. I put on long socks. I put on literally like the sun is not this hot of comfy pants. Like, it was crazy because I naturally give off a lot of heat, and these comfy pants, bro, they trap that shit in to the point where like
Ugh.
I fucking radiate.
Those clothes must have been so ruined.
Oh, dude, so I not sweating at all. I wasn't
Really?
hot. Basically,
Oh,
yeah, when I
man.
went to bed, here's the thing. When I went to bed, I was not sweating at all. I was like, you know what? This is like a comfy heat. And then I woke up
Yeah.
in the middle of
And
the
you were,
night to
like,
go
in
to
a
the
pool?
bathroom. Oh, yeah, dude. I'm
Yeah,
fucking
dude.
drenched. I was like, I literally
Oh,
woke
nasty.
up feeling the most disgusting I ever had in my life. I went to go pull off this hoodie thing, and it was like legit wet. I was like,
Dude, this is gross. All right.
yeah, it was disgusting. But
Nasty.
I felt better the next day.
Well, there you
know?
go. You sweat it out.
Yeah.
You sweat out
Yeah.
the poopy.
Yeah, just sweat it all out. You feel good. Hello and welcome to IndiePod, an indie games podcast, your weekly source for all the indie games news you need to know. This week we are bringing you a whole lot of news stories. We got 4 Mac Daddies, okay? This is big news stories right here. I'm going to start talking about them before, of course, we hop in to a whole bunch of shit over at New Stuff and Newsgrab. There's a lot of stuff.
True.
Then we're going to head over to Kickstarter in our God Bless the Crowd segment to talk about a game that I'm actually kind of surprised. I've never heard anybody talk about this before, and I never actually thought about this scenario playing out. So I'm very excited.
It's
to
very
talk
cool.
about it.
I love the
Yeah.
idea behind this.
Very cool. So make sure to listen that far in. You know, that might be 3 hours from now. As far
Oh God, I hope not.
and we'll end it off with our listener questions. But before we get into any of that, I would like to introduce myself, Vaughn Hyde, alongside my illustrious co-host, the biggest of average Josh Boys. How you doing today, big Josh Boy?
I'm doing well. You caught me so off guard with you starting at that point. I did not know we were going to jump right into this, but it probably makes sense after all that crazy. I don't even know what we were talking about. A lot of side tangents.
you gotta like segue on the peak when it gets to the peak disgusto. Like you really feel like you probably throw up. That's when you gotta go into the next segment. Otherwise, you're
that's
just being
true.
inconsiderate. You're
That's
just
true.
being an asshole.
This is a pretty nasty episode to start with. I don't know.
Oh
about-
yeah. Easy. Well, I mean, we are like the #1 Binding of Isaac fan club, you know? So it's
That's
like
true.
you gotta bring the
That's
gross
true.
shit in. Yeah.
You know what?
Easy.
I guess it all makes sense. That's what we're about.
I know. This is exactly what we do. Of course, Big Josh Boy, in these episodes, we talk about what we've been playing, the news stories, and everything. It's so awesome. I have to ask you a question. I went to go set up the
Another?
dock last night. Did
Yeah.
I delete the games that you were playing? Or did you just not fill it out? Because in our
No,
dock, like a little bit of like behind baseball or whatever, inside baseball, I delete everything, but sometimes Josh, like I do it later. So Josh will hop in and like do the things that he does in the dock. And sometimes I'll just delete it because I think it's old stuff. So I'll just delete it. I come in the next day, we go to do the podcast and it's just gone. And I'm like, where's that at?
I specifically didn't update it. One, because I wasn't sure, because
Okay.
I've been playing a ton of games, and I didn't know what I wanted to actually talk about today, because I'm not going to list out like 5 games here because we'd never finish this episode. But 2, I figured you were going to delete it anyway, so I was just like, I'll let him just delete it. It's fine.
Yeah, it all just depends on when I get to the dock. Like last night was Saturdays have been a little bit weird the past like 2 weeks because I went and played a shitload of like, basically it was Cards Against Humanity, but just knockoff versions of Cards Against Humanity. One was Crabs Adjust Humidity, and that one was interesting.
I love that name.
It's basically like Cards Against Humanity if you just misspelled thing on purpose. Like misspelled things on purpose. It was so weird. So like instead of a Molotov cocktail, it was like a Malcavel cocktail, and you're like, the fuck does that mean?
That's super
It's
weird.
very
All right,
weird.
I'm gonna have to look into that.
It was just a bunch of games that like my friend had, and he was like, I don't think we've ever actually played these. I gotta be real.
I have a buddy who's like that, where he has so many board games, and he'll buy these collections. Where he just bought one for like the Horizon Zero Dawn, like I think it was on Kickstarter, and he bought it for like $200 or something. He has like 8 boxes for this thing because it's like all these miniatures and it's all these expansion sets. And he got it like a year ago or so, and I don't think he's played it once. And I'm like,
That's
what are you
awesome.
doing, man? So much
How
money.
do you collect these friends that just have miscellaneous like collections of shit they never touch? Obviously not me, you know. That's why I made this a little bit darker. You can't see it.
You can't see all of your.
If you can't see, it's not there.
Clearly, it's shame.
Yeah,
someone's ashamed.
I feel ashamed of all the shit I have that I've never played before. Whoopo just chilling there collecting dust. No big deal, no big deal.
Get the hell out of here.
But speaking about games that Josh loves, let's talk about A Library of Ruina by Project Moon. This is a game we actually talked about last week because it was announced to be coming to Xbox Game Pass during the ID at Xbox showcase. So please, Big Josh Boy, tell me about Library of Ruina.
Before I do, did you do the housekeeping?
Oh, motherfucker. I knew I was forgetting something. I gotta be real. Yeah, like I totally knew I was forgetting something. I was like, I feel like I normally do something before I go into like.
I know, so do I. And I was like,
it's these docs. They're throwing me off.
There's too many docs.
I have too many. There's two. There's too many.
Two.
And then I got Patreon open as well. Too many.
Too many things. I get it.
So, in our housekeeping, of course, we've got our Gareth Owens developer interview going live on Wednesday the 25th. That's the day after my birthday, dude.
That's
I'll be
true.
26 years old.
Wow, you're so young.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
You're so young.
So, please check that one out. They are talking about their game You Will, which is interesting. They had a game before this
called Libtard.
Yeah, and I was like,
what? It's a
Isn't it like a satire game? Like it's meant to be like some sort of dumbass commentary?
Yes. It is a really interesting conversation. We talk a lot about their previous game, Libtard, and like the death threats that they received and the struggles of trying to keep up with something like the news, which is so volatile and so constantly changing. It was a really good conversation. And also You Will, I kind of geeked out because it has very much a psychology background of
cards.
If you know anything about the milligram experiment, you'll understand it. But it's basically a psychological experiment where you probably know it, but you just don't know the name of shocking people, where you had a person in the lab who was like the test observer and would say that if this person who's on the other side of a glass wall gets a question wrong, you have to shock them, and you have to press a button and it shocks them at a certain voltage, and every time they get it wrong it goes higher in voltage, and it's like you start shocking people to this level of like extreme, like it'll kill them, even to the point where they push you to do it when the person is like dead quiet and you hear nothing and they don't respond, and they keep telling you to like keep shocking them. And it's one of those things where it's like it's scary because people can be pushed to do things even though they're like, I would never do that. But the idea of obeying another person or like this obedience comes into a scary reality. And this game is looking to play into that, but from a gaming perspective. So I thought it was super fucking cool. Check it out.
That's spooky. Yeah, once again, that developer interview going live on the 25th of August. No big deal. You don't have to get me anything for my birthday. It's fine. It's fine. It's whatever.
Me? You talking about me?
Nah, just everybody.
Are you talking about everybody? Oh, I was like, I've got a little sticky note on my computer here that says your birthday, just so I remember.
Sweet. Thank you. That's
so I remember.
Sweet of you. Please check out our Teespring store. Obviously, it's over at Teespring. It's like teespring.com/store/ whatever. It's linked in our pinned tweet over on Twitter for t-shirts and stickers. Now that I only do Indie Pod, I'm eventually going to make the t-shirts.
Ooh, baby.
I don't know when that's going to happen. You know, it's just like, it's one of those things that I'm fairly certain if it ever happens, the world will end. Like everyone's gonna die. You know what I mean?
But at least we'll have sweet hoodies.
That's true. That's very true. Speaking of sweet things, head over to YouTube, type in IndiePod, subscribe, like our videos, because you can, of course, watch these episodes on the Friday in which they go live for all free sources. Of course, they go live several days earlier for patrons. If you want to become a patron, give us $1 and you get them early. It's really, really nice. We've also been posting some clips that I've been enjoying editing. I think they're fun and they're funny. If If you'd like to write in a question, often enough, that's the part that gets turned into a clip because it's just fucking. That's when we get weird.
That's true.
And you gotta love it. You gotta love it. Please leave us reviews on any site in which you could do so. Specifically, iTunes will help us out in the algorithm and help us reach a wider audience, spread the word about indie games. And lastly, thank you so much to all of our amazing patrons. Ethan, a gamer for fun. Well, once again, these are all the $3 tier and higher, but anyone who gives us any amount of money, you're absolutely fantastic. Ethan, a gamer for fun. John, just John. Will C. Mixamatosis, aka Mix, Zach Durham, Chase Hopkins, Philip Rich, the one better of Australia, Chris Penwell, always drinking tea, Josh Nichols, aka Active Josh, and Sam Phillips from Canada. Thank you all so much. You are all so amazing. And now that Josh has forced me to go through the housekeeping because I was desperately trying not to do it, let's talk about Library of Ruina.
Let's do it. Library of Ruina is an interesting anime as hell game. It is.
Did you say anime?
It's anime as hell, and I feel like you would really like this because it's. I think I'm using this term right because you use it all the time. Isekai as hell as well. The whole idea behind this is that you're fighting people, and if they die, they turn into books. You're turning them into books. Man, it's so strange. Like the game is, it's all subtitles. It's in, I think, Japanese. I'm not 100% sure, but it's not a language I understand. It's all subtitles. You randomly wake up in this strange library, and there's this.
It's in Korean.
Korean. And there's this librarian who is literally like, hey, I could kill you. And then they just start like ripping off your arms. And you're like, ah, and then they like revitalize you and bring you back. And they're like, now you're going to do my bidding. And you're like, okay. And your character is just like totally on board with it, which is super weird. And they kind of address it in the dialogue as well. They're like, why are you into this? And he's like, I don't know. I'm curious to see where it goes. And I'm like, that's a weird reason to be okay with it, but I guess you die anyway, so it makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, somebody starts ripping your fucking arms off. You're not just like, please do it again, mommy. Like, you just
I mean, unless they really like it, I don't know. But anyway, so the story of it is like super strange. It's basically this librarian, that lady who is looking for this ultimate knowledge of something to unlock her ability to get out and escape the library. And so you're inviting these people in this town who will keep coming in to find immense power. And on the invitation, it's like, you can come in and you can have everything you want if you can fight for it and like get away with it, kind of a thing. So like almost it's them signing a contract to say like, if I beat you, I get all this valuable shit. If not, I die and I get turned into a book. And so it's kind of like fair game. But they keep showing up, you keep killing them, you keep turning people into books, and then strengthening up your library and getting these other librarians on different levels. And it's like having these teams that you can play with. It is super a card game. But it's weird because it's a card game with also dice roll mechanics. And it is so confusing at start. Once you get into it, it makes more sense, but there's just like, they dive you into so many different interfaces, into so many different mechanics that play into this. And it's a little clunky, and there's not a lot of things that are explained, at least in my mind, very well. That when I first started, I was like, I don't know why I'm winning really. I'm just winning these battles. So like, I guess cool. Cause there's three main things. There's like a dodge, there's a shield, and there's an attack. And you have these cards that'll have like, one card will have 2 attacks and then a shield, or it'll have like a dodge and then a shield and then an attack. And you have to like use those cards that you get randomly to go against other enemies. But you also have a dice roll for what you're going to get on the card for like the difference for a min max of attack. You have a dice roll to see who goes first and who's attacking. You have to like change who is your attacker and who is the person. Like if you go fast enough with one character, you can get in the way of an attack and be like, I'm going to attack you instead. And there's just like so many mechanics to it at the start that very much into it. And you can see based on the way I'm describing this, like it is
super complicated.
And it's like, once you get into it, it's not, but it just does not prepare you for how overwhelming it is at the start. And I was like, whoa, this is like a lot. I really like the idea behind it. I love the mystery of this strange library world, but I think that the battles can get a little tedious at times. Like it just seems weird. And there's still some times where I'll see certain interactions and I'll be like, I don't understand that. Like that doesn't make sense based on the rules to me. And maybe I'm just a dum-dum, but like there's still certain situations where like I feel like it's almost like a puzzle game, but it's randomized to a bit too much where it's like sometimes I feel like, well, I got a bad roll and that's why I lost. Like, which can feel like a grind as you progress. But the idea is really cool because you're turning them into these books, like these characters that you kill, and you get to burn those books to get pages and other cards. And the pages can then be put on your characters so that you become them and get their stats instead. So it's like, there's so much in this game. Like, I love that they have so much going for it, but man, is it overwhelming. And the biggest thing, if you're like looking for a good story and an interesting card game, like a new one, like you should check it out. I think it's worth it, especially if it's on Game Pass, because it's like it's a no-brainer to get into. I played for like 10 hours or so with it. And the one thing I'll say is I looked at kind of how much is in it, and there's only like a couple of people. Like there's a website that'll say like the average of how long it takes to complete a game, and most of the people say it's like 90 hours. And I was like, I am not into this.
Shit.
I was like, I'm out. So if you're looking for something beefy, like this is for you. But I talked a little bit about this, I think either on the podcast or after, of being like kind of exhausted by card games, of that like I don't want to get into another one to a degree of like too much. Like I think it's super fun, it's cool, but like I spent so much time on Slay the Spire that I'm like, I like this genre, but it needs to be something, I don't know, something really different to hook me in. For the most part, it was really the story that was pulling me along, because I just want to see like what the hell is going on in this world. Like it's super weird what's happening.
Yeah, and I mean, you got Angela, the head librarian, the waifu. You know what I mean?
She
like talking
looking
about
good.
why you stay back. It's like,
Come on. I don't know. I think there's going to be a lot of people who like it, but it can be a grind later as you start getting up there. But I like the way you have these different like characters. You can transfer them. You can have different abilities, but it's like also kind of annoying. One of my biggest gripes with this game is anytime you put a page on someone, which was that point of like you can kill someone and then you get to be that character essentially, or have like a version of that character. Anytime you put that on that character, it then wipes out the cards that you have for that specific person, because you have to build the deck for each person, which is another reason why I don't really like this one, because I've talked about the difference between a deck builder that's interesting to me is one that I don't have to sit there and be like, oh, let me think about what's the perfect way to do. Like, I don't want that. I want something that's like randomly giving me cards like a Slay the Spire, so I'd have to just build what's best. But this one, I have to build the deck for each and every single person that I get, every little helper that I use in this run. And then every time I put a details, like a person page on them, they're like, oh, we're going to wipe out your cards and like do it again. And I'm like, fuck, no, just keep the fucking cards that I had on the person. Why would you do that? And they have this whole save system where you could save the cards that you have, but it doesn't work because you can't save it. You have to like have each character have their own save, and you have to keep doing that. And like, I guess down the road that might be okay, because then I'd have them all set. But I'm at that point of the game where you're constantly unlocking characters, and I'm like, man, stop. This is too much management. Like, I don't want to do this part. I just want to play the story and fight the bad guys. Like, enough. It's too much. It's too much. All right. So that is my biggest gripe. But otherwise, good game. I think people should check it out if they're into like crazy anime likes or just want a new card game to check out.
All right. Speaking of not being anime at all, you know, because that's definitely what you were just talking about.
That was a good transition.
The next game
best one I've seen.
You have also been playing is called Jupiter Hell. It's by ChaosForge. This game looks weird. I've actually seen you playing this like all week, and I'm like, what the fuck is this game, dude? So please tell me about this turn-based shooter from the depths of cosmic hell.
Funny enough, if you're into indie games, if you like our podcast, you should join our Discord. I didn't even know about this game or what it's a spiritual successor to, even though I'm a big roguelike fan. But Jupiter Hell is a game that is, for the most part, it's basically Doom, but if they made it a roguelike turn-based game. They even originally, what this is a spiritual successor of is a game called Doom RL, which was they got a cease and desist letter from Bethesda to be like, cut that shit out. That's our game.
That's awesome.
Like, so they had to change it to DRL, the name of it. But like Jupiter Hell is the same for the like the argument of it being around a Doom based game. Like it is Doom.
Yeah.
Like there's things about rip and tear. There's the heavy metal like aesthetic to it. You're going on these planets. You're going on specifically Jupiter, and you're fighting these demons who look very similar to Doom characters. So it's like it's the same thing, but they just do it to get away with legally they can get away with it. But that being said, it's super cool. Like I love this idea because I really love Doom, but at the same time, I don't always want to play this fast action packed like crazy shooter, right? Like I love this. I'm not the biggest like old school roguelike fan. Not to say that like I don't like them, but I just haven't played a lot of them. But this one I feel like is a really good way to get into these type of games. So what I mean by roguelike is it's very typical to the idea of you're always going to start out at the same basis. There's no progression. Like it's always going to be if you die, it's permanent death, and you have to start back from that same starting point and just go through the world. It seems like a much longer game as far as other like roguelites, or like if you think of a Hades, you can complete it in like an hour, right? Whereas this, I've been playing for a couple hours and I'm still in my same first run and I'm playing through it. This is one that this is one that I feel like I'll probably have like reoccurring mentions down the road of like next week. I'll probably talk a little bit more about how far I'm at, but like I'm really enjoying it where I'm at so far. It's such a cool turn-based game. It's very much plays into kind of corner shooting of like finding cover and shooting past these demons that you're trying to find. You have like a weight system. You have hunkering down based on the location that you're like leaning against. You have all types of weapons like shotguns, like SMGs, pistols, you name it. And a lot of the randomness to this is very much in its, you could find any of these weapons, you can find these different maps are all jumbled around and procedurally generated. So it's really cool that there is a difference in how you're going to playing this, even though it is a roguelike where it's always going to be the same, because they also have 3 characters. So you have like different abilities, and every time you kill a certain amount of enemies or you do something that gives you experience, you level up and you can put points into a skill tree that you can try a different build each time. I've heard some arguments that it can feel a little samey after a while of, because there's not as much of a random drop system or something. Like if you think of an Isaac or you think of like a Hades, you have those different modifiers as you're playing through the game where you're like, oh, I didn't have the option to get, something from the Poseidon tree in Hades, but everything from Zeus is dropping this time. So I'm going to build something around that, right? There's a lot of fun that comes with that variability and that building on the fly. And you don't really get that in Jupiter Hell. You get more of you're always going to have the same options, but you can try it a little bit differently each time and see like what's the best alternative for you. So it very much plays into that roguelike of knowledge is power more than just getting a good run, so to speak. Which is fine. It's not like it's a negative. It's just a different approach to how you would play a game like this. But I love the heavy metal aesthetic. I love the artwork to this game. It looks super cool. I think you can play it with just a keyboard or just a controller. Like you don't even use a mouse or anything. So it seems pretty accessible because it gives you as much time in the world as you want to play this game, to be as like methodical with it or to be as quick as you want, because it's all based on your movement. Every time you move, the enemies move. Like nothing will do anything if you're not doing anything. So I think it's super cool right now. In the couple of hours that I've played it, I want to play more and actually beat this and see like how I like it. I'm playing it on normal difficulty and there's like 3 after this. So I want to see what the difference is between those levels and try to unlock some of those. I'm having fun with it. Like I think it's a really good roguelike to get people into this style of roguelike, because it's normally you see a lot of roguelikes which are, much lower polished, I guess I'll say, because that's kind of where they came up from, is games that don't have this much detail and this much like graphically aesthetically pleasing styles to them. But I just, it just feels like more Doom, which is great. And also I haven't felt like it's as annoying, but I always have that one gripe of like, if a game feels poorly written because it's just like, oh, fuck. I'm always like, and we've talked about this a little bit. There's literally a thing where they're like, do you not like that? There's a toggle for it. Just turn it off. which I
That's
appreciate.
cool.
I haven't done it
Yeah.
because I haven't, like, honestly, it hasn't felt egregious to me. So I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, that's fine. But like for people who don't want that, like super cool to have that as just a little, like, how easy is an option like that, right? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, that's interesting. I wonder if it will just censor it or if it takes the word out.
Yeah,
Like,
I'll have to.
I'm very interested to know how that mode works.
I'll have to check that out because like I said, I haven't cared. I might just turn that on just to see. But ultimately, so far, I'm having a lot of fun with it. I can see that some of the weapons feel very samey, and there's also times where I'm looking at the actual stats for things, and I'm like, I don't know what the difference is between some of these things, other than some of them when they get more rare, they turn a different color, and I'm like, it's a different color, I'll pick this one up. Like, you know, there's some things that I'm starting to learn, and that's a lot more of a roguelike, but it's very in certain aspects it feels like there's not enough description as to what these things do, but in other areas it seems totally fine. So I think it's just maybe I need more practice with going through runs, and I'll pick it up. So I'm enjoying it. I think other people will if they have any interest in roguelikes, or if they just want a turn-based game, or if they like Doom. Check it out.
All right. Did you actually pick this one up on Steam?
I did.
Or how are you playing it?
Yep,
Okay.
I picked it up on Steam.
All right.
I got a
Dang.
gift card, and I spent some virtual monies.
Oh, nice. I think one of the coolest things, just looking at the trailers for Jupiter Hell, because I haven't played it. Granted, I don't think I ever will, because I'm a little bitch. I
think you would like this game, because like this is one of those games where it's not hard from a mechanical standpoint. That's
a good point. Yeah.
It's hard from the idea of just trying to figure out what's the best way to deal with a situation. Like you open up a door and there's two enemies, and you're like, okay, I got to back up. I got to find cover and like get better ground before I like engage. But if you're just like, there's two enemies, I'm going to fucking run in and just start blasting. It's like, you might have a harder time.
I mean, however like hard this is to believe, I feel like my skill in games drastically outweighs my intelligence. So maybe,
I don't know.
You know,
I don't know. I think you could do it. I think it's not that bad, because it doesn't seem as, at least unforgiving as other roguelikes are.
Okay.
And there's also a lot of difficulties. There's an easy, there's a normal, there's a hard, there's a nightmare, and there's something else.
Easy?
There's an easy. I'm not playing easy,
Okay.
but
Right.
normal so far has been pretty easy. So I feel like you can do it. I think you can do it.
The one thing I really wanted to talk about is Doom really has like among FPSs has a very specific thing that no other FPS really does, and it's speed. It's the amount of time it takes to get a kill, and it's just everything is fast paced. You're always moving, you're always doing something. And kind of looking how that translates to a turn-based game in Jupiter Hell, it's actually very fast for a turn-based game.
Yeah.
And I find that legitimately surprising.
It's interesting because at first you're going to be really slow because you don't understand, like what all the buttons are or what it means. But like, it's funny enough when you play this game, like you could just hold down on one of the, WASD to move around left or right. If you hold down on it, it almost makes it look like you're just literally like playing a game that isn't a turn-based game.
Yeah, and for a second I thought it wasn't. In the video I was like, is this not? Can you turn it off?
Yeah, they do it in a very seamless way where a lot of this can be played very quick. Like even though I talked about like not just running in and shooting up, like you can do that, but it's you might get hit a lot more, right? And you need to be a little bit more smarter about this because I feel like with Doom, I mean technically that's still the same with Doom, like as you get into the harder levels, but like you still run in and there's a lot of times where there's just like 5 people just rushing at me and it's like one button. You literally press F to fire, and that's your button for your gun. And then
cool.
you just shoot. I do it a little bit slower where I press T because you can aim. So it's like 2 clicks, but I just make sure that it's in the right area and then click. Because if you have like 2 people on the map and it's like one here, you want to like focus where your attention is. But I've been using the shotgun, so I'm just like, fuck everyone in my way because it's got a cone of fire and it's great.
Yeah.
It's great.
That's awesome. Jupiter Hell seems really interesting. Also to the like homage of Doom that you're basically like, yeah, it's basically Doom. The actual key art on Steam looks almost exactly like the Doom 3 cover art for the 360 case. Or not the 360, the original Xbox case. I find it legitimately hilarious. It's awesome.
It's a real weird gray zone when it comes to legality with this kind of thing. Cause they're not as crazy as they were with DRL or Doom RL, because they literally were like, it's inspired by this. And you were like, yeah,
they're like, no, it's basically Doom. Duh. And you're like,
I don't know that you could do that. But this one's a little bit less on that. But like, you could tell, like, anyone who looks at this, they might just be like, oh, did the people who made Doom just make a turn-based game? And you're like, not really, but kind of.
All right. Well, Jupiter Hell seems really interesting. I'm excited to see how it works out for you. So I've been playing more Garden Story this week by Picogram. Here's the thing, okay? This week has been incredibly hard for me. And you know why? And it's like, this is, you know, it's a white boy problem, whatever. It's stupid. But
I can't wait.
I don't want to play this game anymore. I really don't. I'm done playing this game. I've gotten to my third town and had to do the same shit over and over again. And I just don't want to play anymore. But Psychonauts 2 comes out next week.
No.
So well, that's the thing. No, I'm not playing it. But now I just have, like, I don't want to start anything. I don't want to do anything because Psychonauts 2 comes out next week. So I'm like, what exactly am I going to do?
Play 12 minutes.
That's what I thought. I was like, maybe I'll play 12 minutes. I've been like hopping into Hades a little bit and just doing some runs, seeing if I'm playing any better. I'm not. I
feel like you can't take a break from a game for months and then just be like, am I better? Like, it doesn't work that way.
I mean, I feel like I've gotten a little bit better at games in the past year, so I was like, maybe I can come in and actually do a little bit better. And I feel like in certain cases I have, and in others I'm just like, yeah, I definitely, there is a bit of like, I need to know how enemies attack, and like I forget how a lot of it works. I actually did get technically a little bit farther than I did before, because
did you beat those two?
No, okay, here's the thing. Oh, no. I always got massacred in Elysium by Theseus and the Minotaur, and it always bothered the shit out of me. But this time, I killed the Minotaur and almost killed Theseus. So, like, I'm getting there, bro.
Theseus is the part you had trouble with? I feel like once I killed the Minotaur,
I just had like no health after I killed the Minotaur. I was basically dead already. So I was just like, I'm trying to beat the shit out of him, and then he was just like, ugh. And just hit me. I was like,
that boss is definitely the first ramp up where you're like, I've got a handle on this game, and it's like, no, you don't. And you're like, what just happened?
Well, yeah, because here's the thing, like the Hydra, not hard to fight. No. It's really not. And like the Meg or any of the other Furies, they're not really hard to fight either. Like, but once you get to Theseus and the Minotaur, it's just like, these are basically two difficult opponents that you have to fight at the exact same time. Versus the Hydra is just like, there's like, 5 heads, but they all fucking suck. So it's like, you just gotta avoid their projectiles or avoid the dumbass lava on the ground. But
this is a great,
I know, great discussion of Garden Story,
about
right?
Garden Story.
Getting out of the Hades talk, playing more Garden Story. I got to the third town. Seemingly there's 4 towns. I got to the third town after basically grinding to get my level 3s. So you basically like there are 3 different stats in your towns. You get them up to level 3, different things can happen. You basically just try to build your town up by doing these different daily tasks. And I built my first town up, had to go to the second town because that's just part of the actual story. And you're slowly building up all of these different towns going through. You get to this new town. You don't have to worry about the other, but you do. You basically just reset, and you're like, okay, now I just got to go up from level 1 to level 3 again and just do these daily tasks over and over again. And they're not that different. It's just like 3 different types of tasks. One is killing, one is collecting, one is repairing.
Damn.
And you just do it like every day. You basically do 3 different tasks. Sometimes you only do 2. I've never had it where I only had to do 1, but these things are sometimes required to further the story. And it is so annoying because it means like that's the primary thing that I do in this game. I can't do anything else. Like I can go do favors maybe, which are basically side quests that may give me like a new piece of equipment, or I can go and farm some resources so I have them later on, but then there's a cap to 15 that you can hold in your storage, which I think I can increase, but once again, have to do the daily tasks to do that. So it's like it just gets so annoying.
This game sounds like a grind.
Yeah, I'm just so sick of it. It's like, come on. How did you expect this to go? Like, typically building up towns is optional, and they've made it part of it, like it's required to further the story, which wouldn't be annoying if it just wasn't so monotonous. When it's just like, go kill 7 of these big sludge guys. Go kill 7 of these sludge guys that just happen to have a shell on them. Like, and not to mention that a lot of these enemies are just palette swaps. They're not different. It's like the same sludge, but a different color. And you're like, maybe a different color is different. Like, maybe it will require a different attack. Like, maybe it require, like, I can no longer use my pick. I have to use the spear, which is an umbrella, and I found that funny. Maybe I have to use my hammer. Maybe they require a different damage type. Nah, they're just the same. They're just a different color. The only difference is the ones with shells on them, you have to pull the shell off with your fishing rod. And then they're just a normal slime. So it's just so annoying. Like and they have like a little bit of a different attack pattern when they have the shell on because they dash at you. But otherwise, they're the same fucking thing. And it just gets so arduous. It's so annoying. You do the same things like over and over and over again. And I feel like I'm just not seeing a good enough reward for what I'm doing.
Right. Yep.
And the fact that I have to do this just to further the story is just so annoying. And then when I finally get to bosses, they're just super anticlimactic. Like the first boss is the bookworm that you fight in the first library. And it's got basically like one pattern of attacks. That's it. And it's not hard to fight at all. I think I've died once in this game, and it was because I ran out of stamina and couldn't move in time for something, which the time it takes for you to swing and then move, it's like fucking endless. It's like an eternity. That shit's crazy. Okay. Like I just don't like it. I really thought I would.
I'm so glad I didn't end up getting this.
Yeah. Like, and I'm glad, I guess.
Here's the thing.
It's very possible that people like this game because it has mostly positive reviews on Steam. And I was like, I really, really want to like this game. I just feel like the gameplay, like the day-to-day tasks are just annoying. They're not fun. I barely get to know any of these different characters. I want to know more about them, but I can't like increase a friendship level with them. I can on occasion do a favor, but it doesn't, like, I get to know barely anything. Like it kind of sucks.
Yeah.
And then like when I finally get to bosses, they're easy to fight. It's no big deal. And then I just leave and go on and basically just rinse and repeat with the next town. There's no special story with each town. It's just like, hey, you're basically just doing the same shit over and over again. Like there's only one boss. It's in this random cavern, which is basically just like the first one when it was in a random cavern underneath the library. Like it just gets so annoying, and it doesn't help that the combat is not good. I don't think it's good. It's very inaccurate. It feels very floaty. It just feels very, very rough. And I'm just not impressed with it. I know.
What a shame.
Just shitting on this game. No, I really wanted to like it. I really do. But there's just, I don't.
Yeah.
If you enjoy it, that's amazing. Yeah, it's good jelly, not my jam, which is kind of funny because it's a grape.
It's a grape. So. It's very, very, very funny. But I do like the idea of being like, I don't like this game. I'm gonna stop playing it because I hate, especially for anyone who does podcasts like these, or even if you don't and you're just playing a game to play a game. Like if you don't like it, fucking drop it, because like it might be a good game, but it just might not be for you.
Yeah, I just stopped playing it last week. Like that, like I realized that Greek came out, and I was like, oh crap! Like I really want to pick up Greek, and then realized that I'd like 5 days, 6 days till Psychonauts 2 came out. And I'm like, what am I just gonna drop this when Psychonauts 2 comes out? So that's the kind of like limbo I've been in from like last Wednesday. I was like, I just don't want to play. Oh no, it was last Tuesday. I played Mark Garden Story. I was like, I don't want to play this game anymore. Yeah. And since then, I basically just a week, I was like, what am I gonna fucking play? I guess I'll maybe play some more Remnant. I'll do something.
What like, about some boyfriend dungeon? Huh?
I've actually thought about it. I really have, especially because of like the different takes on it, which, you know what? Why not just get into our main news stories right now? We'll hop into it because I pretty much covered all my opinions on Garden Story. Yeah, I think palette swaps and such. Good jelly, not my jam. Time to move on. So our first news story, this one is over on IGN. It's written by Wesley LeBlanc. Our first 2 news stories are actually written by Wesley LeBlanc, which is really cool because he's like an up-and-comer in the games industry. I think it's really awesome. Yeah. He's like he's seemingly like close friends with Joseph and all them, which is super cool. But this is Boyfriend Dungeon's voice actor is being harassed for playing a villain, which is interesting. The voice actor for the villain in Boyfriend Dungeon is asking players to not harass him for playing that villain, as some people have forgotten that his character is fictional and a voice actor is actually a real person.
This is a ridiculous story. I hate everything about this. I'm like,
it is really dumb.
So, I mean, I guess I'll let you finish and then I'll talk about my opinion. But like, this is so stupid.
I should say I'm going to skip like a portion of this because we'll talk about it in the next news story, but there's also like an issue about the content warning of the game. Yeah. But in short, Eric is manipulative and a stalker. So this is the villain that this voice actor portrays. The content warning, just skip the content warning stuff. I really don't want to talk about the content warning because we're going to talk about it in 5 seconds. There was one message that I got, and this is the voice actor. There was one message that I got. I actually quoted this one. It was like, it reflects badly on you for portraying a character that does these kinds of things, Gross told Kotaku. It was part of a longer paragraph message or something, and that confused me because, I'm thinking I took the job because this is what I love doing. I don't condone what the character does. And these are some tweets from the voice actor. They say, hey, I can't believe I have to address this, but please don't send me hate messages about my character in Boyfriend Dungeon. I know he sucks, but I'm just his voice actor. Please be respectful. Saying it reflects poorly on me to play a character like this is so confusing. There's bad people out there. I don't support what these kinds of people are doing, saying, thinking at all. It's just acting, y'all. Which I totally get. Just because you voice a shitty character doesn't mean you are that shitty character. Doesn't mean you condone it. Has nothing to do with it. Like, this is a job. That's it. Like,
I think this is so nuts that people are so like, how hard is it to understand that this is just a make-believe thing? This has nothing to do with who the person is. There's clearly just him acting in this realm. Like, what are you doing? And granted, here's the thing. Like, I kind of understand this from the perspective of not liking that this is in the game because it is a very slimy, just disgusting character that people are made to not like. And why is that? Because the character is created that way intentionally to create that kind of tension in the story, right? If you are offended by this because you know that this equates to like not wanting to shine a light on this thing happening, you're doing this whole portion of this a disservice, right? Because like the idea of having this is to showcase that like, hey, there's people who might do something like this, or there's people out there who suck like this, right?
Yeah, and it's to show that in a villainous light. It's the entire point of this being a villain, showing you that like trying to teach you the lesson that these things are not okay. They're fucked up. But for some reason, people have like this cognitive dissonance where they're just like, you're giving this villain a platform. And it's like, they're like, really not. They're not. They're showing that this. Yeah, you're like, literally by saying the word villain proves that you understand why this is here, that person is meant to be a shitty person. It has nothing to do. Like, I kind of just. there's this thing recently that I really hate when it's trying to act like things don't exist because you don't want them in your life because they are triggering or anything like that, which I understand if you want to avoid triggers. That's why content warnings exist, which we'll talk about in just a second.
Right.
Like, I totally get it, but you can't, like, they will continue to exist whether you like it or not. So harassing and hassling a voice actor for portraying something is just ridiculous, because also, if this person didn't do it, someone else would. Like, this villain is going to exist whether you like it or not, and people like that are going to exist whether you like it or not.
And that's kind of why I feel like it's such misdirected anger. It's like, who are you really angry at? If you're angry at the fact that that kind of thing is happening, you're not making a change in the world by attacking a person who is playing a character. You need to find some way to get that anger out and use that to be productive in a way that's going to make sure that situations like this don't happen in the real world, if that's really why you're so triggered by this. But if you're just mad because this person is playing that character, that person's just doing their job. They didn't write the character. They didn't come up with the character. They're literally just reading off a piece of paper and portraying what was already given to them. Like, who are you really attacking? No one. You're just mindlessly throwing words at this person who really has no, like, and yes, you could say, oh, well, they might have, not taken the role. But to your point, someone's going to do it. It's like, it's not a portray of, and I don't know. I think maybe if like the situation was different, and granted, I don't know all of, Boyfriend Dungeon, and I highly doubt that it is the case. But if this slimy person was like the villain and then they get away with shit and that's just how the game ends and it's like, haha, they win, I'd be like, yeah, that's kind of fucked up. Like, that's a bad story. Like, that's ultimately, like, sometimes that can happen, but like, we don't need more of that as like the shining light on it. But like, still, I think the takeaway from this is like, if you really are affected by that, like, use that to try and make the world a better place and to try and make sure situations like that don't happen. But I don't think trying to attack an actor is going to get any change other than making a person feel shitty for their job. It just seems fucked up.
I find it so weird that there's like this selective aggression that people like choose the thing to get super annoyed about. They get annoyed about the voice actor who portrays a villainous character who is a stalker. Like, the stalker thing is like, oh, that's what I'm really upset about. Instead of like, if they carried that in general, I would really hate it. But like, it's not like I imagine this person, I don't know, sent like harassment to Josh Brolin for playing Thanos, who basically just glorifies mass murder. Like, it's, villains exist for a reason, and they're meant to be something that is toppled. Like, they're meant to showcase the worst things possible, and then you see these, it's basically showing you two sides of the coin and showing you that there is a choice between doing the right thing and the wrong thing. Granted, I'm pretty much a nihilist, so I think it's all just fucking, it's just like, it's made up anyway, but it's just so weird. I find it so odd, and please just leave them alone. They didn't do anything wrong. They're just doing their job. They're not trying to give a platform to a disgusting person. They're not fucking Matt Lauer. Like, they're just a human being trying to live in this world and do their job. It's really like, they're not a villain in real life. They're a person. Just think about it for a second. Like, is everyone on Earth that works for Walmart a piece of shit because Walmart's kind of a corrupt company and kind of garbage? Not really. They have to do what they have to do to work. It's just what happens. It's kind of how our world exists. It's almost completely like, you can't really live a moral life. It's basically impossible. So just kind of take that into account before you start harassing random people who are just doing their jobs. And in a sense, probably doing the better version of this. Whereas, like, it's very possible that they could have gone like a fucking redo of Healer route where they basically just glorify, like, I guess, like, basically taking revenge on the people who did things to you by raping them, which is really fucked up. So, like, let's just move on to the next news story, because we're going to continue talking about Boyfriend Dungeon, and we've talked about this enough. Please just try not to harass people in general. It's not it's not a good thing to do. Leave them alone. Everybody gets their comeuppance eventually, even if they do bad things. So let's just move on. This is also written by Wesley LeBlanc. Its Boyfriend Dungeon developers apologized after fan backlash over content warning. Kit Fox Games has apologized for the content warning in Boyfriend Dungeon, acknowledging that it inadequately describes the event of the game. Kit Fox posted the apology on Twitter over the past weekend, which is when the conversation over the game's more potentially triggering aspects really came to a head. The studio also confirmed that a new content warning will be soon added. This likely means the content warning will make it will more accurate. I don't know why I said make. It will more accurately describe the stalking and emotional manipulation present throughout the game. So they went to Twitter and wrote, the content warning for Boyfriend Dungeon inadequately describes the events of stalking and emotional manipulation that exist in the story. We will update the game next week with a more accurate content warning. We apologize for any hurt inflicted by our mistake. Thank you for playing. The content warning currently in the game, the original one, says the game may include references to unwanted advances, stalking, and other forms of emotional manipulation. It also tells players to play with care, as noted in The Verge's coverage of the content warning. The larger discussion around the content warning wasn't so much that it doesn't mention all the potentially triggering content of the game, but more that the warning doesn't necessarily mention how integral to the story's progression that content is. IGN's own Boyfriend Dungeon reviewer touched on this in their review, and they said, I was made massively uncomfortable by responding to his creepy messages. As soon as I realized I could just ignore him, I did, and went about my character's summer. Only after completing the dungeons and finishing 3 character paths did I realize that you can't actually bypass his creepiness. If you don't answer the texts of an asshole, you don't get to finish the story. Yikes. The review continues and mentions that Boyfriend Dungeon does feature a content warning at its start that warns players of the potentially uncomfortable situation, but it didn't say I'd have to take part in them. Physical notes, additional challenges in the dungeon, I'm assuming is what DUNJ, or myriad of other threats would have been better than forcing us to give space, and by replying to Eric's the stalker's messages and choosing to engage, this is giving space in order for him to continue his gross ways. IGN's review continues. If it were me, I'd just block him and be done with it.
Yep.
That's not possible in the game, however. It seems Kit Fox Games is apologizing for failing to mention that in the game's content warning, the new content warning that promises to be more accurate will likely address this unskippable aspect of the game. I did read this basically in its entirety, so please head over to IGN, give Wesley LeBlanc and them the quick click on this. It is a good article, and thank you very much for writing it, Wesley. But what do you think about this and its content warning?
This is where, so before we go into the content warning, this is, I think, going a little bit back to, the who are you angry at, right? Misdirected anger being attacking that person who is creating this. I think this is probably bad writing from their point because of the exact mention in the IGN review of like, why do I have to respond to this person? I don't know the story of Boyfriend Dungeon, so I can't really speak to this, but like, I do agree that in situations like this, if there is a scummy person who is heckling you or pestering you, shut it down. And like, that should be it kind of goes into like, what are you teaching, right? What is your platform showcasing? And if your platform in that light of being the game is trying to teach you how you should handle situations that are shitty like this, if they're pushing you to do that, doesn't that seem kind of like opposed to what we would go about? So like, this is why I think some of that anger should be directed towards them. And really it should be more of like, it was just a bad choice from a game perspective, I feel like, from their story and design. Like, the content warning is fine. Like, I guess you could put that in there. And I guess you could say, like, people would make mistakes and possibly, like, continue that conversation, even though they should just shut it down with a person who is not a good person. Granted, you don't always know. But, like, it just feels scummy that is a forced perspective, even though there's like there seems to be a choice to not do it, and then all of a sudden they're like, but actually you have to, right? I think
like you can put it off until later.
Like I think that whole entirety
what.
of it is weird from a gameplay perspective and from a story perspective for what this subject is. Granted, I see that they're probably trying to make a stand or tell a story, and so they have to have that. But like the way it directs you feels very strange. I think that it does make sense that they need that type of content warning if that is the case. I think it's also hard to justify, and that like it's hard to have a warning for every little thing, but I do understand being more clear and less generic about it in these cases. I don't really know. And it's so weird to me because, as a person who really didn't have any interest in this just because it didn't look like my jam, like I'm so shocked that there's so much in this that is so controversial. But I don't know. I guess like, yeah, maybe that's what there needs to be. Like these type of games that get into very tough situations need something like this. Cause it's like you said, there's some people who just don't want to see that. They don't want to deal with that. And that's totally fine. And I think it does make sense that they wouldn't want to be pushed into this type of situation if there's a way to know about that. But I also think that no matter how much blockage you put on there and how much context you give them, people still might fall into that trap of being like, well, it's probably not that bad, right? And then getting upset. But granted, more is probably better.
Yeah, this is kind of interesting. One, I mean, the content warning, I do understand why people would want or feel like it inadequately describes what happens in the games, especially because it says like references to unwanted advances, but it seems very blatant that this person is like, just making advances on you that is not wanted or not warranted in this storyline.
Right,
like,
very true.
It's like you said, it's very generic terms the way they talk about this, but so I think the changing of this content warning is fairly necessary. Granted, I mean, it all just depends on how people go about this. If they're like dicks to the developers and are like, you should die because I had to go through this, it's like, yeah, that's probably not the way to voice this, but I'm glad that the developer, I'm not saying that happened, but just like there is, I guess, a nice way to be like, hey, please change that content warning. Like you really did not describe very well what exactly happens in this game. And I 100% agree with that take.
Right.
There is the side though that like, I mean, in a sense, I understand how you were talking about like, like bad writing in the game or anything like that. I guess in a sense, I enjoy is the wrong way to say this, but I guess I do appreciate that the developers are showcasing that it's like ignoring a stalker doesn't work. And they said that they would just block them. In reality, that doesn't work. Like, I'm not speaking from my own experience, but my wife has actually had similar things happen to her, and ignoring them and blocking them, it almost just increases their tenacity, like what they will go through. They will start contacting you on different platforms. Like, it's all an issue. And and to your point of like bad writing, possibly, I do think that this is also coming from a point of ignorance, not knowing exactly how Boyfriend Dungeon plays out, but I don't think that just ignoring them or blocking them is the right way to go about this. So I do appreciate the developers of Boyfriend Dungeon are like, you do, in a sense, have to confront this behavior. You have to show them that it's wrong, or you have to find a different approach. You need to contact the authorities. Like, something has to happen. Like, problems just don't go away when you ignore them, especially problems like these. Because I feel like, granted, it depends on the situation, but...
Right.
And it really sucks that it does fall on the person. Like the victim has to be the one to put a stop to this instead of the perpetrator. Like once being confronted about their actions, understands that it's not okay. But like, yeah, it took years of my wife trying to basically get this person to leave them alone for it finally to happen. And it really only happened because I did something about it. And it really sucks that this stuff exists. So like, I guess in a sense, I appreciate that they are kind of reflecting the reality of what a situation like this could happen.
Right.
But I mean, I guess I would appreciate if it was like put in a different way. Like maybe there were different ways around this. I
For
really
sure.
don't know.
Yeah, I think us
but
not knowing the full story
it's
of the
pretty-
game makes it hard to talk about this one way or
Yeah.
another. Of
Yeah.
is it writing that could have been done a little bit differently, or is it something where it's like, to your point, it is talking about the fact that it might not always be as easy as that.
Yeah.
But I think it's a really slippery slope, and I think anytime you get into these type of things, like you see this with any psychological horror game or something that gets into very twisted subjects or just darker subjects, you have to put these warnings because people can be very emotionally hurt by a lot of the things that come up. Like that's just the nature of it, and I think that having more of that warning is a good thing, just so if because people should have the ability to understand pretty quick into it's the same thing as like a game trailer. Like what am I getting here, right? I want to know what the gameplay is, I want to know what the story is, I want to know some of the context to it, right, before I make a decision to purchase and or play this game. And like the same thing could be said for certain touchy subjects like that. It's hard because like what becomes a subject that you always need to mention. But I think like moments like these are what helps for that, because it plays into, is a developer or is a creator willing to say, what, you're right, we didn't accurately describe this. This is what's in the game. This is what if this is something you don't want to be a part of, by all means, don't play the game because it might not be for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm very glad that the developers kind of are understanding this point of view, and they're like, we're going to change it. Don't worry, because I think we both agree that it doesn't accurately portray that, and seemingly a lot of people agree. So I'm glad that they're changing it, and we will move on from there. So our next news story actually continues to be on IGN.
Even more controversial, some might say.
Maybe, dude. I've seen a lot of people blow up about this, and it's pretty interesting. So this one's written by Jared Mort as Among Us developers call out Fortnite's sus new mode. Members of the development team from the highly successful indie game Among Us have taken to social media to call out Fortnite's new imposter mode, which strongly resembles their game. I mean, it's their game. Like, let's be real. Like, here's the thing that I find so hilarious is like, Fortnite, the mode that made it the most popular, one of the most popular games,
was also a ripoff.
Is literally a copy of a different game. Like from its inception, this game has been copies of different games. Which, granted, like I don't think anyone owns a genre.
No,
like Brennan Green did not own the battle royale scene, and he also did not create it. Like the creators of it, the ones who made the movie battle royale, don't own that. Don't own the entirety of that. Like once you put something into the world, you kind of, in a sense, like give up unless you like patent it. Which also, even if the Among Us developers try to patent this, that would be kind of fucked up because they actually based this off of a social deception game that existed since the 80s. Yep. So it's like, but moving on.
Yeah. It's
the new game mode, which pits 8 agents against 2 imposters in a battle of wits and espionage, shares an uncanny similarity to Among Us in terms of gameplay and design. After the announcement, which Innersloth confirmed to IGN was not a collaboration between the two games, individual members of the indie studio took to Twitter to share their feelings on the situation. Programmer Gray Porter was quick to point out some similarities between Fortnite's loop control facility and Skeld, the first map to debut in Among Us. Innersloth's co-founder Marcus Bromander, better known by his online name Puffballs United, added, "We didn't patent the Among Us mechanics. I don't think that leads to a healthy games industry. It is really that hard to put 10% more effort into putting your own spin." Also, like, if you didn't patent it, I think that'd be kind of fucked up, considering games existed far before yours that actually had these. Like literally just 2 years before, there was I think it's called Werewolves Within, which is a PlayStation VR game and like an Oculus Rift game where it basically was the same concept, with the exception of you didn't have to complete tasks and stuff like that. You just had to speak to people, and it was all about literally just social deception. But a big part of this is this map, and I very much enjoy this part of it because I think it's the absolute dumbest part of this argument. I think you can 100% say that Fortnite basically just took this, they basically just copied it. 100%, I get it. They copied your game mode, that not disputed at all. But putting the two maps side to side, I think hurts your argument so much because there are small similarities to this map, but as myself and other people have like kind of pointed out or talked about, is that if you look at almost any map from a top-down perspective, this is what it looks like. Mm-hmm. It's like that's just how they build maps. They look vaguely similar. I literally, the first game in the conversation that I had about this with my friend Chase, he was like talking about it and I was like, oh my gosh, like I literally brought up, I was like, I could look up a map from Dragon Age Origins, like literally off the top of my head. And I was like, guarantee you it looks a lot like that. And he looks it up, the first, like within the first like 5 images, he found one. And I was like, fucking copied it, bitch. Like, it's just, I feel like this really hurts the argument, but I don't think that there's anyone saying that they didn't copy your game mode. They absolutely did. 100%. But the map thing, I think, is a little bit weird. I find that really odd. And also, I do think that there should be some like stones lobbed at Epic and Fortnite, that they are seemingly so willing to collab with large scale brands. They have Kratos, they have, I believe, like Aloy, Master Chief, they have Ariana Grande, they've done all of these big concerts and different things. Like, they are obviously so willing to collab with large scale brands, but they didn't even seemingly try to collab with Innersloth to make this, which really would have dissuaded all controversy about this if it was just like, yeah, the developers of Among Us, we got together with them and we're making this same mode, like a similar mode. Like, that would have been totally different. But instead, they just took it. Like, it's, once again, they don't own it, but they basically just copied the same format of it and we're just like, yeah, whatever, it's cool. In no way this is going to blow up in our faces. Like, I find it so fucked up. I think that's probably the most annoying part about this, is that seemingly they thought it was okay to like not collab with an indie developer, but when it comes to a large scale brand, they're like, yeah, we better like check to make sure it's okay to have Bloodsport or Kratos or Master Chief in our game before we do it. Like, I don't know. I just don't like that. But how do you feel about it, Josh?
I mean,
this was one thing you didn't really give a shit about.
I don't care at all. I don't care about either of these games. I think that Fortnite, like, it's shitty, but like, it's one of those same things where it's like, it's a gray zone. It's the same thing with Jupiter Hell, where yeah, they're taking it, but also like, it's like you said, they didn't patent it, right? They don't have the Among Us game trademarked, you know, that type of style to it. A
social deception game.
It sucks because it's very clearly playing into what Among Us is, and it's like a bit too close, but it's still in that gray area where it's like, we can get away with this. What are you gonna do? Like,
and
now,
they probably will.
And
like,
they will. Oh, of course they will. It's fucking. Yeah. There's no way they don't get away with this. But that's just like, that's how it is, right? And that it sucks because you know, the people who love Among Us, or the developers from Among Us, you could potentially see them being like, oh, this is, you know, our game, or our audience is gonna flock to Fortnite. But I don't think it will, and I don't think it'll affect them really.
Neither do
I think if anything, this will make it wider of an audience for Among Us than it will for Fortnite. And here's my reasons for this. Among Us is great for a number of reasons. But one of the biggest reasons is accessibility. Fortnite is not accessible to everyone because you have to have a good enough like you have to have a console or you have to have a good enough computer that can play it.
I mean, it's also on phones, but yeah.
Yeah, but like a lot of people don't like they're not going to play a game like that on their phone. Like I'm talking about an accessibility from a person who's like not a gamer, quote unquote, whatever that means, but like the just the general person who's like, "Oh, I guess we'll play it." Like this is such an easy game that even people at like my company, like just a bunch of random people will be like, "Let's play Among Us." And they're like, "What is it?" You can easily jump into it. You need like no crazy technical prowess for this game. It's also not like intensively demanding from a, you know, a mechanical standpoint where Fortnite would be a lot more to jump into. You can't just jump into this and be like, "Oh, I'm going to play." Like, I think that this very much is going to be something that like sucks, will raise awareness to the situation, or when people find out that they're playing it from Fortnite, that there's a version of this that's just like a cartoon version that's easier for people to jump into, it'll probably push more of an audience to them, which is a good thing, but it's also not like, it still isn't fair. Like it's not an acceptable reason for it to just be like, "Oh, it's okay." And also it could have been a collaborative thing where they did something. They could have had very easily Fortnite characters in Among Us out of nowhere for like a brief period of time, and then stupid Among Us looking clothes for this map. And they worked together on it, and some kind of, they could have come to terms with this. There could have been something that could have been even better that I'm sure came out of it if they did. Granted, not every company wants to, although that's not a good argument for Fortnite just because of how much they do with every other game. But, you know, not every idea they have, they would want to collaborate. But like still, I think it's a gray area that's just, it just sucks.
Yeah. I totally think so too, but it's just so annoying. That's my biggest issue with this, is just the refusal to collaborate with the developers of this game, especially because like I feel like it would actually bring a large portion of the Among Us like audience over or like over to Fortnite if they were swap. Like, yeah, if we're collaborating with Innersloth, check this shit out. Like granted, that would be so awesome. But
granted, this is becoming a bit like, I don't know that it's a big thing, but there's an article about it, right? People are talking about it, but like I think that they didn't have to collaborate with them, but like they had to make it more unique and like build upon that genre
they
for
just
it.
Copied it.
Yeah. And again, this is one of those moments where like, I don't know much about either of those games. I'm just getting what I know from these articles and from, you know, doing some research on just like that actual Twitter forum or the posts and going through and like looking around at stuff. But, you know, if it was just a tad bit of different, I guess it would have been like, this would have been a totally different discussion. It would have been like, Fortnite people make a really cool version that plays into what Among Us did. And it would be like, wow, they're so innovative. Wow, they made this cool thing. Blah, blah, blah. Like, I don't know. But it's just, instead the discussion is like, they stole our game.
Yeah, definitely. So our last news story is over on Kotaku. This one's written by John Walker, and I'm not going to read the full report because this is a really long one, very similar to like the PlayStation doesn't like indies thing. But this is Dev reveals exploitative nature of most game contracts. Receiving a publishing deal for an indie publisher can be a turning from an indie publisher can be a turning point for an indie developer. But when one-man team at Jake Friend was approached with an offer to invest $500,000 Canadian dollars into his hand-drawn action-adventure game Scrabdackle, he discovered the contract's terms could see him signing himself into a lifetime of debt, losing all rights to his game, and even paying for it to be completed by others out of his own money.
Nuts.
In a lengthy Twitter thread, indie developer Jake Friend explained the reasons he had turned down the $500,000 publisher deal for his Kickstarter-funded project, Scrabdackle, already having raised $44,552 Canadian, $52 Canadian, from crowdfunding. The investment could see his game releasing in multiple languages with full QA testing and launching simultaneously on PC and Switch. He just had to sign a contract, including clauses that could leave him financially responsible for the game's completion while receiving no revenue at all should he breach its terms. So kind of talking in a little bit more broad terms in this one, because I really don't want to go through literally all of it, because we're already, hour and a half into this, and this is a very long report. But there's several things brought up in this, like Jake Friend. It's like it's possible for this publisher, if they took issue with the direction the game was going in, Jake Friend would either have to change it, or they would just hire somebody else on to change it, and Jake Friend would have to pay for
it. It's
without
nuts.
a ceiling. Like it's just an enormous, like a possibly enormous amount of money, and that continues. Whereas it's like Jake Friend wouldn't actually make any money until guaranteed 30 days after the launch of this game, and they would only make that if they recouped their investment before. Like they wouldn't see a dime before they recouped their investment, which granted,
it was like 24,000 or 2,400 copies of the game have to be sold before they get any revenue. It's like nuts.
Yeah, and like they could, if they breach this contract, which is an issue because the contract has a lot of vague terminology, they could essentially just take it. They could take the whatever Scrabdackle is, and Jake would be stuck with nothing. Like, there are so many things that are super messed up about this. Like, they'd get a 50-50 revenue split, which we have talked about in the past, how much we kind of, like, depending on how much you do, 50-50 might be like a good one. But we've talked about revenue like splits in the past with Steam or with Epic and everything, them being far different and far more annoying. A lot of other indie developers actually weighed in on this, saying that this is not an isolated incident. This is actually like pretty widespread across the industry. Like Jonathan Blow talked about it. They contacted Devolver and they said, which I found interesting because Jake Friend specifically did not mention the publisher in this article or in any of this because of this exact reason. Whereas like if they mention it, other indie publishers could be like, oh, I can't believe they did. We don't do that. Like, I can't believe they did. And I love that Devolver like Kotaku reached out to Devolver and they literally did that. I was like, what the fuck?
Because it makes sense. Why would you? No one's gonna be like, yes, we definitely do that. Like,
why would you immediately be like, oh, I know you're angry about this, but like also industry standard. Like, no, you're not gonna fucking do that. That shit is so funny. How do you feel about this, Josh?
I can't believe this, man. It blows my mind because you think about this kind of stuff and you're like, yeah, there's shady publishers out there. There's shady people out there, right? We know that the industry can suck at times, right?
Yeah.
But I just didn't think it would be this widespread, which, hearing from other developers, it's such a shame to see that this is a big thing that's constantly happening. But two, man, these clauses are nuts. Like, I can't believe that anyone would sign up for this. I'm so glad that from my day to day, I never have to think about this from like a legal standpoint of like trying to figure out contracts, trying to do like, this is one of the other reasons why I'd never want to be an indie dev. Like there's so much shit you have to go through that I just would not want to be a part of. It's not just make a game and be like, yay, it's done. It's like, you have to fucking weed your way through all these terrible snake salesman, is that a snake oil salesman of publishers that are just out to get you. It seems like, what a world, man. I'm glad that Jake Friend said something about this. Shout out to Jake Friends. He did a interview with us. You should listen to that. But I'm glad he said something. I think it's interesting that, like, as I was reading this, I was like, why didn't you say the publisher? Like, you should say the publisher. Like, we want to know to like help other indie people. And then when they mentioned why, it was like, okay, I guess that makes sense. But then you also read farther into it and everyone's like, yeah, everyone does this. And you're like, oh, I guess it doesn't fucking matter. Just every publisher sucks. Great. Like, what a dark way to like, very unoptimistic way to think of this, of just being like, yeah, you're going to have to like figure it out because a lot of them are just awful.
Yeah, and Jonathan Blow brings up a great point, is that this exists because a lot of businesses see it as a way to take advantage of like people who don't understand business. Like these,
Yeah.
a lot of indie developers are hobbyists that move into it. You've spoken to several of them in your developer interviews where they're just like, yeah, I mean, I had never really, like, I messed with code before, but then we just kind of got into it and really
Right.
loved it, did a game jam and decided like, hey, this is what we want to do.
Yeah.
Imagine going into it with that, where it's like, that's a hobby. It's a hobby that then becomes a reality that you're like, oh my God, through a Kickstarter campaign, we actually get to make this. Granted, Jake Friend said they only had enough fun for 10 months. So they're already kind of feeling those financial constraints of being an indie dev.
Right.
And then this publisher comes in and they're like, we will give you a bunch of money. All you got to do is sign the dotted line. It seems so great, but like, they're not business. They don't have a degree. And like a lot of these people they didn't go to college to study business. They didn't do any of this. They are hobbyists. They're making this because they want to, because they love to. And some random publisher comes in and is just like, yeah, we will basically, it's literally like signing a deal with the devil. It's like, you're gonna get fucked.
Yeah. And it's shitty too, because like there's not a real good way to avoid this other than being like, publishers, be better. Because you could be on the side of like, well, then why don't you hire a lawyer? And it's like, they don't have money to even make their game. Like they're struggling as it is. They can't just hire someone to be like, can you make sure that this is like legally sound and I'm not getting ripped off? Because just reading some of this, the portion where it was talking about the 2,400 copies that they have to sell at first, when I read like the legal term of it before they explained like this is what it meant, I was like, I don't know, like it could be anything.
Totally didn't get it.
I was like, if they didn't have that like the cliff notes of it, which no legal contract will, then you have to really sit there and think about it and figure out, you know, like, what does this mean to me? And yes, you should do that when you're reading a contract, but like inherently we shouldn't have to sift through all of these bad practices.
Yeah, that's once again, that's why it's awesome that Jake Friend came out about this and kind of began to expose this large issue, this like open wound within the games industry, is that like indie developers are just being taken advantage of. Like this is just like the Fortnite story. It's seemingly because they are small and they may not understand the inner workings of the industry or don't have the clout of a large company that they're being taken advantage of for those reasons. And it's really fucked up. I don't like it. I'm not a fan. And like, I can't wait to see all of the different people that pop up and are like, I signed a contract with Dangan Entertainment that's just like this, or it's really gonna suck. And I specifically bring that one up because like there were actually reports of issues with that publisher. So
I really hope we don't get one where it's like Devolver was lying. They actually fucked us over. Like.
Yeah, that would suck. I mean, especially because Devolver's pretty awesome.
I love Devolver, like, so I'd be so hurt. Yeah, I'd be like, no, not my baby.
Yeah. I mean, hopefully this, at the very least, has been circulated enough to make indie developers a little bit more wise about like these contracts. And granted, like you said, it is they write these contracts at like a high level of abstraction, so you don't understand what they're writing, but at least they'll be a little bit more wise going into it. Is like, I know I'm going to get fucked by this. Maybe they ask another person to read it, a lawyer or not. Maybe they understand some of the terminology. Just like any information, and more information is better in this case. And I'm glad that this is now out in the open. For sure. So that is the end of our news stories for today. So it is time for us to hop into News Cram. News Cram is our weekly wrap-up segment where we, the hosts of IndiePod and Indie Games Podcast, cram you full of all sorts of indie games news. Our first quick news story for today comes by way of IGN, where it's reported that free-to-play multiplayer shooter Splitgate by 1047 Games is essentially entering early access, as the developers have chosen to extend the beta indefinitely as the game surges in popularity. I love that they're just like, yeah, we're going to have a never-ending beta, and it's like, there's a term for that. It's called early access. Like, that's what it
open
is.
Beta. You know what's interesting about this game is this very much plays into like the same discussion of like Among Us and Fortnite, because Splitgate is literally Halo and Portal.
Yeah.
And it's like, is this like where, you know, it's hard to draw the line of like where this is okay. Of being like, hey, we mashed up these two games. Is it okay? Because we stole it technically, but like it was a innovative, unique idea. Like in that realm, kind of. But also, you could say the same thing for like the Fortnite case, right? Like, are we treating it heavier, like of an emphasis of like they're wrong because they're a big company, or is it just because the situation is different? I don't know.
Well, yeah, it's just like how we've had conversations over and over in the past, like with Gleamlight or Enchanted Portals, or like even with Minecraft, in a sense, like has actually copied elements or was an homage to other games. Like, basically everyone builds off of something.
Yeah.
So
this whole episode is just about people fucking copying each other.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it was like Steven Spielberg or somebody who said there's only like, or it was Martin Scorsese who says there's only 10 stories to tell, and they've just been retold over and over again.
Yeah.
Like with different characters. And like, I find that very interesting because it's true. Like that's 100% true. When you really look at it, like as I'm forgetting his name now. Cam Hawkins, I believe is his name, pointed out like the Into the Spider-Verse is basically just the Lego movie, like over again. That's what it is. And it's like, yeah, that's technically true. Yeah. It is just the same story, but with different characters. And I totally get it, but also hating something because of that, I've always found weird because it's like, yeah, everything is something else. Like they're all the same. Like 90% of coming of age stories are the same fucking thing. Like it's just what it is. Yep. But now over to Twinfinite, where it's reported that adventure game Goodbye Volcano High by Co-op, and it's KO_OP, has been delayed to 2022. Now on to some new stuff. Our first 10 items of new stuff come by way of Nintendo Life, where it's reported that strategic roguelike deck building game Monster Train by Shiny Shoe is now available on the Nintendo Switch. That hack and slash action game Smashing the Battle by Studio HG is headed to the Nintendo Switch sometime this September. That adventure game Murder Diaries by EpiXR Games UG. Oh, what?
That's a name.
Is headed to the Nintendo Switch and PC via Steam on September 16th. That action-adventure game Turnip Boy Commits Tax Evasion by Snoozy Kazoo will receive some free DLC on August 26th, which will include a new roguelite train dungeon.
I might have to hop back in.
New enemies, a new boss fight, and much more. That third-person open-world action-adventure game Elements by Wreck-It Games is headed to all current consoles, including PC via Steam, sometime in Q4 of next year. Here's the thing. They said current consoles, and I was like, people are still in this weird limbo where they refuse to talk about how the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X and S and Nintendo Switch are the current consoles, and last gen is PS4 and Xbox One, so it's like maybe they're talking about PS5 and PS.
Yeah,
like I really don't know.
Another year or so needs to go by for people to just be like, all right, we're PS5 and Xbox Series X, like that's it, like no more.
Yeah, definitely. That's why, like in the doc, I put it in quotations, like all current consoles, because it's like, I don't know what that means.
Yeah. And it makes it even more confusing because Xbox is like, you could play it on anything now. Like, it doesn't matter. The Xbox One or the Series X, like, it'll just run shittier, but you could still play it. Whereas PlayStation is just like, I don't know, we'll make it up as we go. Some of them you will be able to, some of them you won't. So you're like, I can't just use that catch-all of like either or.
Yeah, it's very weird. The beat-em-up Aeon Must Die by Limestone Games is headed to all last-gen platforms, including the Nintendo Switch and PC via Steam sometime this year. Sometime later this year. The 2D action platformer Flynn, Son of Crimson. I've been waiting for this game for years, bro. I'm so stoked. By Studio Thunder Horse is headed to all last-gen platforms, including the Nintendo Switch and PC via Steam on September 15th. That's the hard part, though. Like, Eastward comes out September 16th.
Ooh, baby, what you gonna do?
I know. It's a hard one. It's a very hard one. That minimalist puzzle game, Alveoli. I don't know. It looks like an anagram for ravioli, I'm going to be honest, but without the R, you know what I mean? By Emil Izmailov and Denis Petrov is headed to the Nintendo Switch on September 1st. that Monster Tamer Nexomon by Vivo Interactive Inc. is headed to the Nintendo Switch on September 17th. And lastly, that adventure platformer, A Night at the Races by Mushy Jukebox is headed to the Nintendo Switch on September 3rd. Over to Polygon.
Can we take a break for a second? How do you think ravioli is spelled?
I'm not sure.
Because it's not at all an anagram for alveoli. I did one of those yep. And I was like, wait a minute. No.
Yeah, you're just sounds right.
And then you tripped me up because I was like, maybe I'm wrong. And I had to look up how to spell it again. And I was like, no, I'm right. This is not at all right.
I don't even know how to say that one too, so I don't know.
Let's go. I'm sorry.
Now over on Polygon, it's reported that all sports mashup game Super Slam Dunk Touchdown by Tipping Goat LLC is headed to the Xbox One on August 27th. And lastly, over on Twinfinite, it is reported that first-person simulation game Cat Lateral Damage Remeowstered by Manicoware and Firehose Games is headed to all current and last-gen consoles, including PC via Steam and itch.io on September 15th, and that horror FPS Forgive Me Father by Bite Barrel is headed to Steam Early Access on October 28th. Now it is time for us to hop into our next segment because we've been blessed with so many amazing indie game news stories that it is time we get back to the creators. In our next segment, God Bless the Crowd, this is where the biggest of average Josh boys hops into all sorts of crowdfunding sites, finds something awesome for us to talk about, and we do just so. This one is 20 years in the making. It is, of course, Infinity, a Game Boy Color tactical RPG back after 20 years. After 2 decades, we gather a team to finish and publish this long-awaited game on physical cartridge. The developers were looking for $12,479. They currently, at the time of this recording, have $164,728 with 1,758 backers and 25 days left to go. The developers of this are Incube 8 Games, and it's like Incubate. That's interesting. Okay. I get it. And to get in, with just getting the ROM of the game, it is $10 American or $12 Canadian. So, Big Josh Boy, how do you feel about Infinity?
I love watching your brain work in real time.
It's very boring. It's like other people's brains are like a well-oiled machine. They're like a Swiss watch, and mine is like a Swiss watch if it missed a couple gears and had like duct tape and bubble gum.
I love it so much. Let's talk about the game though. Infinity. I feel like both you and I are going to have the same opinion on this. I think that this is so cool from the story of it, because literally what happened is this was a game that didn't come to fruition and was kind of just lost in the makings. And in 2016, I believe the source code for it was released as just like a, here you go, we found it. Like, the company's not doing anything with it. So this team is coming together to use that source code and build on top of that and actually finish this game from something that was 20 years ago, which I think is so immensely cool. The idea behind this is awesome. I think that for anyone from, that era is going to be super excited to see that, like, oh, this is coming back out, and like, it must be a great feeling to jump into it. You can already tell that like there's a lot of people behind this because of how much money is getting poured into this in only the 5 days that it's been alive so far as a campaign. But I'm pretty sure both you and I don't care at all about this game and will never play it in our lives.
Oh yeah, literally the exact same thing.
I picked this for the story of that premise of just what a cool concept. And I know there's a lot of people in like our Discord and that listen to us that will probably enjoy this game, I feel like. But man,
especially Will.
Yeah, probably. I feel like Will. I feel like Sam. I feel like even Philip would want to check out a game like this. But like, this does nothing for me. I look at this and I'm just like, nah, not for me.
Yeah.
Not for me.
I'm not interested at all, but I'm interested in the precedent that this sets. That like it's very possible, and I guess actually this may not have set this. It's possible that like Epic Games with releasing all the Paragon assets did, where it's like it's very possible with crowdfunding sites and just the availability of tools with things like Unity or the accessibility to Unreal Engine, and just being able to learn with things like Code Academy or Skillshare and stuff like that. That a lot of games that have just been canceled throughout the like decades of video games can actually just be finished now. Like if the source code is given, if assets are given, it's very possible that a lot of games that were canceled throughout our childhood, like imagine if in 10 years somebody makes Scalebound, like they just finish it. How weird would that be?
Yeah.
Okay, granted that's never going to happen, but how fucking cool would that be? Like I would love that shit. That'd be awesome.
I really enjoy the premise behind this, as you're mentioning, of just it opens up a world of possibilities for those who really love the idea behind something, whether that is a franchise or whether that is just an idea that never came to fruition, that was seemingly very that had a lot of potential. I think it's really cool. I love this idea. If you're into this kind of thing, definitely check it out. But like for me, I don't have much to say about the actual game itself.
Yeah, me neither. I did think it was super funny though that like as it goes through the trailer, it just sounds more and more mediocre to today's standards. So they're like 20 spells, and I'm just like, get over yourself. But then you gotta take it into context. You're like, oh, this is like an old fucking game. Like, no wonder they're just like 20 spells. It's like, ah, shit, no way, 20!
That's so many.
It's got 6 characters. Ah!
Yeah, it's pretty.
It's all very weird, but I think it's really awesome. Yeah, I don't really have anything to say about it either. Obviously this has already worked out well for them. I hope that like they continue to see success. I think this is amazing, and I really hope that this like continues on, and maybe we continue to see stories like this. Like I think that would be really, really cool. But
we'll see. We'll have to wait and see. Hopefully some cool new things that maybe you and I are a little more interested in playing.
Yeah, only time will tell.
We'll find out.
Time will tell. So, time to move into our audience questions. Zach Durham writes in and asks if you had, and this is like, I have so little to offer to this. I have so many questions. Zach, like, did somebody dare you to make a cocktail? Like, what's up, bro? Like, is this peer pressure?
You know what's funny is
what are you doing?
I looked this up. Oh, let me say the question, because I think we haven't actually said it
yet.
Okay,
so Zach says, if you had to choose, which would you rather make a mixed drink with, Dayquil or NyQuil? And what ingredients are you using?
I have so little to offer to this. I specifically I like looked at it and I was like, I don't take either of these really, like, ever. Like, I don't remember the last time I've had Dayquil or NyQuil. So I was like, what? So I typed in Dayquil cocktail and something came up and I was like, people shouldn't do this. Like, I don't know why this is a thing, but it's
That's
like,
awesome.
It's actually a cocktail that has no Dayquil in it. It's just called that. And I was like, that makes more sense.
Okay. Maybe Zach is just misunderstanding.
I don't know. Are you getting a call right now? Who's calling you? Who's that?
It's my nap alarm.
Oh, is it time for a nap? Is it time for some sleepies?
I literally, like, right as we started recording, I was like, I should probably make sure I don't have any alarms set.
This guy, oh, man, just ruining Zach's question. You're such a piece of work. You really are.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know if I had to do that. I mean, I guess I would pick NyQuil, right? Well, I don't know, because am I gonna die from that? Like, Dayquil and NyQuil are really bad to mix with alcohol. So that shit like kills your liver real quick. Oh yeah. You should not mix those with alcohol. It like makes it real quick to liver damage, failure stuff.
Something.
It's fun times.
Your liver's
it's fun times. You drink it, you wake up the next morning and your liver is missing. Real bad.
Yeah, just you wake up and like actually that all those stories about people like going to Vegas, meeting like an attractive person and then just winding up in a bath full of ice cubes, that's because they slipped them a NyQuil laced drink. Dude.
That's true.
So,
yeah, I don't know.
It's just gone.
I can't see myself wanting to make that. If I had to, it would probably be like, what would go with, because usually NyQuil and DayQuil have that like gross syrupy taste. Like,
yeah, I think that's why, like, what ingredients would you be using really comes into play, because it's like you want something that will mask that smell. And see, here's the thing, here's why I'm going with this. One, I'd choose NyQuil. Okay, because I don't want to drink, all right, and I know that in this scenario somebody's making me do this, so I add fat amounts of NyQuil. Okay, like a lot of NyQuil. I take that grape soda, because that's like the strongest soda I can think of, you know what I mean? And pop that in there, because NyQuil already has that like really vaguely shitty grape taste. I pop in that grape soda, because then it's like maybe that will offset it. Hella sugar. Just put a bunch of sugar in it. And then just hope that the NyQuil knocks me out super, super quick. And then like whatever alcohol, I'll put 1 shot of vodka in there just to get out of it. Cause like, I don't want to drink. So like, I'm just going to put the tiniest amount of alcohol in and then just fucking hopefully fall asleep. So everybody just leave me alone. Yeah. You know what I mean?
I also want to, like, we probably should have started this off, but like, I don't condone this. Like, don't actually.
Oh, not at all. Yeah. Don't make this mocktail. Somebody's going to like, if we ever do an event, somebody's going to come with like, they're like, I call this grape drink. And it's literally just like a fucking 2-liter bottle that's half filled with NyQuil. Like the next third is grape soda and then just a shot of vodka and just a shitload of sugar. It's basically just like, actually you should call that death.
Yeah. That's the Vaughn. That's the Vaughn special. I think if I had to do this, I'd do DayQuil, and I would do something like a Miami Vice, which is mixing a pina colada and a strawberry daiquiri together. And I would pour the DayQuil in there.
How much DayQuil would you use?
I would hope effectively none. I'd rather just drink it without it.
You use a thimble full of DayQuil. You're just like little
pop. Okay, we're back to
whatever.
Yeah.
I'm starting to think that Zach is like vaguely sick and is just like, this has got to go down better.
It's like, I don't want to take this, but like, how do I?
Given the choice, would you rather just take the tablet of DayQuil or NyQuil, or would you drink it? Because my wife, she's like, I like the almost immediate relief of drinking it, but of course you get that shitty taste. Where I'm all about just taking the tablet. Granted, they're like horse pills; they're huge. I pop them both in there because I got that big boy gullet, that fat neck, dude.
Fat neck. You know? That is a weird way to describe it. I don't like it.
What's up?
Fat neck in it. I forget the question. I would take the pills.
I forget the question.
Like, the fat necking just got me all out of sorts. Okay,
all right. So I think we thoroughly covered your question. Please do not make these drinks. Don't attempt it.
Don't do it.
Nah, that's a terrible idea. Don't just try not to make one of these mixed drinks in general. Not ours, but just in general. Don't pop the Day or NyQuil in there. That's a bad idea. And Chase writes in and says, what annoys you? Wish I could list all mine, but the show isn't long enough. But here is one that comes up far too much. People pretending to care. Take that how you want. Works with multitude of things.
Do you know what he's referencing?
Yeah, I should give a little bit of background. Of course, Chase is my best friend. And like a couple years ago...
Is he mad at you?
No.
Do you not care?
No. I mean, in a sense, like maybe. I don't know, depending. But a couple years ago, like since Chase and I work together, he often will walk up to me and like bring up different things. And I'll do the same with him. We kind of just bounce ideas off each other.
For sure.
He's actually the person that I've talked about the Fortnite map thing with first. He's the one who brought it up to me. And I was like, and I should say that it's just confirmation bias. Like they copied the mode. So people are like, they copied the map. And it's like, they really didn't, but whatever. But Chase came up to me and he said that he really hates when people pretend to care. And it's like different scenarios that they feel like it could be really anything. They get on a high horse about any sort of social issue or big issue. But when really worse comes to worse, they don't really actually care about it. They just wanted that internet clout. They just wanted whatever. They wanted to be part of that moment.
Yeah, for sure.
And Chase really hates that. At the moment when he brought that up to me, I was like, I think they really care about it. I was like, I think they care. Like, I totally believe in them. And granted, now I have gradually worn down where I'm just like, nah, I get it. Yeah, I totally do. Especially because of how many, and this is something I find really funny, is that I mean, this is also going to be a polarizing topic, so just give me a second here. Content warning. I'm going to talk about the coronavirus. And that wasn't a joke about content warnings. That was legit. When the coronavirus first started ravaging the world, everybody was bringing up the death tolls. I get it. That is the thing you bring up in this because a lot of people were dying. Now, when the Delta variant is coming around, you see the same people, instead of like talking about masking up, getting vaccinated and stuff, instead they're no longer talking about people dying, but instead talking about how it is affecting their lives again. Like how, oh, I have to stay home again, or I have to do this, or I have to do that. And it's like, it very much seems like you never actually cared about the death toll. You just cared that you had to stay in your apartment, which I totally get. Like, that's a perfectly reasonable thing to be annoyed with. I don't think like being secluded did not work well for anybody. It was really like the world's craziest social experiment to see how many people they could fuck with at once. Like, that shit was insane. But also, it's like, what Chase finds annoying is pretending to care, giving a certain reason when it's actually like you might care about it for an entirely different reason.
Yeah, and I think it's hard because you really don't know. You don't know a person's intentions. Like, it sucks. Like, there's some people where you're like,
even at the time, sometimes you don't understand your own intentions.
Yeah, for sure.
You get angry about something and you think it's one thing, but it's actually just, like you said earlier, just misplaced feelings, that misplaced rage.
Yeah. So like I can understand that, but it is really hard because it does become a perception of like sometimes you're putting those intentions or those assumptions on one person because you're like, well, you probably don't care. But like, you don't really know.
You don't really know.
But it's hard. I'll tell you about my annoyances though.
Yeah, what do you find
something that I can for sure know that I'm annoyed by. I'll do it in I have 3 specific things. First one, people who are excessively like aggressive and want to always one up you. Like, it's not that you're competitive, but it's those people who you're talking to and you'll bring up a story and you'll be like, oh yeah, I went to the store today and I did blah, blah, blah. And they'll have to be like, oh, well, I went to the store and I did this. And I'm like, shut the fuck up. No one cares. Like, fucking, what? Get the fuck out of my life. What are you doing? Like, I know people who are like so much in your face all the time. They're always like, well, here's my story. And I'm like, I'm telling the story. Fuck off. Like, why? You're not adding to this. Please step down. And it's so, and I'm not the person to like immediately say that. So I'll just be like, all right, here this fucking person goes on their rants again. Cause like, I don't want to be an asshole, but also like, chill the fuck out. Not everything is a competition in life. Like, if we're competing against something, sure, be aggressive, be friendly, competitive, spirited, blah, blah, blah. If we're just having a conversation, like, you gotta chill. Like, it's such a big pet peeve to me. Like, people are just too in your face all the time. 2, fucking messes. I fucking hate messy shit. Clean up your area. Mm-hmm. God, I fucking hate a mess. It like, I didn't realize it until I moved into my own place. Like, I used to be like, whatever, when I lived with my parents, I was like, I don't give a shit, whatever. I have my own house now, and it fucking, or when I had my apartment, like, it just blows my mind how little things left around the house like make me want to be like, this needs to go somewhere. Like, I don't know why it triggers me so much. 3 is the last one, and this is the big kicker. All right, and COVID. Some silver linings is the like, give me my personal space, give me my 6 feet. I wish people respected that a little bit more, especially now that like some people are just kind of over it for some reason. They just don't care. But like, when you're in a grocery store, if you're in the line to check out your items and someone is in front of you, stand back. Why do you need to like lick my ass while I'm waiting for putting, like, my stuff is on the conveyor belt? You don't need to be just like, hey, what are you doing over there? I gotta put my stuff on the conveyor belt. Could I get there? And it's like, no, you can't. You can't fucking get there because I am here. We're gonna get out at the same exact time because this person has to ring me up. Like, you have a cart. Leave them in the cart. They don't need to get to the magic conveyor belt that makes it go quicker. Like, it triggers me so much when people get so close to me. I'm like, leave me alone. Please stay out of my bubble. Why are you here? It blows my mind, dude. I don't understand. What is the rush? Like, you're not going to get there any faster by you putting your items down. It's like someone's going to like, oh, someone will take my spot. They'll put items on the conveyor belt. It's like, no one's there. We're in a line. Like, what is this mass chaos idea that people have that they're going to like lose their spot or possibly waste 2 seconds? Like, I do not understand it for the life of me.
I mean, yeah, that reminds me of like when people are in traffic and like this lane's slow, but this lane is going like a tiny bit faster. They get over and step on the gas so fucking hard, and then after hard brake at the car that was literally like 10 feet in front of them, you're like, you just wasted your gas. Like, I don't know why you did that.
I love those moments when people get like, they swerve out in front of you or do something like that. And then you both like, not when you're in like stop and go traffic, but you're like just driving normally. And then you both stop at the same red light in the same spot. Yeah. You just like look at them and you're like, was it worth it? No.
You're like, have fun filling up on your $6 a gallon gas, bro. Yeah. It's so annoying. Also, like, one thing, since you brought up the grocery store, the grocery store easily the most annoying experience you go through. Like, let's be real. I think that's why, like, if there's one thing that I think a lot of people have like changed their lives from, they feel like has been better during the pandemic, is not having to go to the grocery store and just getting their shit like sent to them, or like pulling up and they put it in the back of your car. Yeah,
I hope a
lot of people discovered this and they think it's awesome.
I hope they totally never get rid of the people who just walk your groceries and things out to you. Like, I love doing Target's pickup because it's so nice. It's so
I've
nice.
never done it, but it seems really cool. I personally, I don't like the like grabbing equivalent items and stuff like that. I just want to shop on my own. Like, I don't really mind. But I guess it's like, it would save me so much stress, and like probably the amount of like rage that I feel is not good for my heart. But I fucking hate the grocery store, dude. Oh my goodness. I hate it so much because like the aisle meant to fit 2 carts, the person who walks in the center of the aisle, it's like, can you eat a dick? Like, fucking move to one side, bro. Like, you're pissing me off. Or like, I think of aisles like roads, okay? We, like, in America, and this isn't like, in America, we do this. No, it's just like, okay, we drive on the right side of the road. People, like, oncoming traffic drives on the left. It's obviously different overseas. That's cool. I would like to see how shit works in, like, grocery stores there. But in grocery stores, when I think of an aisle, there's people, if you're going this way, you're on the right side. If you're going this way, you're on the left side. It's just like a road. But the people who like switch it up and start going down the right side and then look like you're the asshole because you're in their way, you're like, the fuck you want from me, bro?
The unspoken rules of the grocery store.
Yeah, the grocery store is just so annoying. Or when somebody like parks their cart in front of something and then just sits there and like reads the entire product description while covering up the entirety of like just the rest of everything. Yeah. Like all the juice or whatever. And I'm just like, I guess I'll just fucking sit here and wait. Like,
yeah, like it's okay to do that if you're also being like cognizant of people around and being like, oh, do you need to go here? Like, let me move my cart.
Like, oh, I'll move a bit. Yeah, I'm always like, I'm so terrified of somebody flipping out at me in the grocery store that like somebody looks at me and I'm like, I'll move, don't you worry. Like, or when I have to wait for my wife, I try to make sure that I am in the place where nobody has to get. Like, I'm going to go in this fucking weird ass corner. I'm going to go at an end cap that nobody gives a shit about. Yeah. Like, just so many other things. But the grocery store is easily, like, everyone jokes about the DMV being the shittiest place on earth, but it's like, have you been to a grocery store? Because they fucking blow. All right? Like, I fucking hate them. They're just, they're the worst, dude. Everything in the grocery store is the worst experience. It really, really is. I hate it to my core. I really do.
All right, there we go. That's what annoys us, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like, I mean, there is a plethora of other shit that annoys me, but I feel like I'll just let it go for right now because this is over a 2-hour podcast so far.
This is too long. This is a long episode.
Oh my God, really?
When I say
it's a long episode. I'm not mad at you, but when you do like there's 150 episodes and more than half of them are 2 hours long, it's not a long episode. Everything else is just a short episode.
Well, I'm looking for a short one, and it doesn't ever seem to happen.
Almost never. Yeah, almost never. But that is the end of this podcast. Thanks everyone so much for listening. If you would like to chat with us outside the show, you could do so in a bunch of different ways. Specifically, the easiest way is to hit us up on Twitter. Well, actually, that's not even true. The easiest way is to follow us on Twitter at IndiePod, then pop over to our pinned tweet and join our Discord where you can chat with us there. We're in the general chat.
General trap?
Yeah, I don't even know. The general chat, we're constantly talking there. We've got indies to keep eyes on. We've got a whole thread for listener questions. And of course, if you're a patron, we've got specific chats, Discord roles for you as well. So all you got to do to get the Discord roles and stuff, you got to give us like $3 or $5, but you also get some awesome perks otherwise. And just check out our Patreon, over there, patreon.com/indiepod. Check it out. You can become a patron. You get stuff early. You get other perks. It's sweet. But if you would like to chat with me, specifically Vaughn, you can hit me up on Twitter at Hyde Legion. That's HYDELEGION. I start school next week, so I will soon know what my schedule is going to be like, and I'm possibly going to be Twitch streaming again soon. It's going to be fun. You can hit Josh up at _George90, and you can check out his Twitch streams whenever he decides to do them, if he ever does again, at twitch.tv/_George. I guess I should say mine is twitch.tv/Hyde Legion. Easy to find both. And before we hop off the episode, gotta go through the housekeeping one more time. Check out that Gareth Owens developer interview going live on August 25th. It is about their game You Will. Head over to Teespring and check out the IndiePod store for t-shirts and stickers, eventually more. I don't really know. Head over to YouTube to subscribe to our YouTube channel, like those videos, check out our clips because they are fun to edit and I do enjoy them. Leave us a review on any site in which you could do so. Specifically, iTunes helps us out a bunch. You give us that any amount of stars. 5 stars helps the most, but like if you don't think it's 5-star worthy, I totally get it. Everyone's like, if you don't give 5 stars, don't leave a review. No. Constructive criticism, please. Tell us how we can improve the show. I would greatly appreciate it, but the 5 stars will help us reach a wider audience and spread the word about awesome indies. And lastly, Thank you so much to all of our amazing patrons. If you give us any amount of money, I absolutely love you. I'll kiss you on the mouth eventually. That's actually one of them Patreon tiers, you know what I mean?
No,
outside of the butt pics,
no, it's not.
Kisses.
No, it's not.
I like how you just like, that's not, don't do that.
Like,
Don't
not
do
going there.
But we specifically got to thank the $3 tiers and higher. Ethan, a gamer for fun. John. It's just John. We'll see Mixomatosis, AK Mix, Zach Durham, Chase Hopkins, Philip Bradshaw, the Wombat of Australia, Chris Penwell, always drinking tea, Josh Nichols, AK Active Josh, and Sam Fillin from Canada. Thank you all so much. You are all so amazing, and we will talk to you next week. Goodbye.
Bye.
Gonna give him the finger guns. Turns out, like, the laws of reality change, like, right before we end the podcast, and somebody just gets riddled with bullets.
Why would you do that?
That shit would be crazy.